and Greg and Richard right here on Talking Reds.
Hello and welcome to Talking Reds, a Nottingham Forest podcast hosted by myself, Greg Oram, and my podcast partner, Richard Spray. Today, we're joined by regular contributors, the Statman, Danscape, and Raf, the random pundit. The season is over. The final whistle has blown. The curtain has come down, and the fat lady has given her soprano rendition of Mull of Kintyre. Our job for the next hour or so is to look back, reflect, and remember. The dust is still settling, but one thing I hope we can all agree on, this has been Nottingham Forest's best season in over 30 years. A season of highs and invariably some lows as well. A season where records were broken and words like unity, spirit, consistency, and bounce-back ability were all staples on this channel. So, strap yourselves in for the Talking Reds Nottingham Forest 2024 to 2025 season review.
Football from Forest through Yates, and it might break back for Yates with the edge of the box. Hudson-Odoi for Anderson, inside left channel, into the penalty area, squares it for Wood. Wood turns, yes! In! Lovely finish from Chris Wood, a magnificent turn and hit, blow into the
Langer, how about that? He's picked out Hudson-Odoi, those two are making an impression, making a difference, and Hudson-Odoi has made an even bigger difference there! Has snatched the lead out!
Got Anderson away to the right, instead he's found Gibbs White, inside right channel, he fires this one will count! Milenkovic scores again! Bulldoze his way through challenge. White's got room to charge into. Through the walls half he goes with Alanga to his right. Here is Alanga just inside the box. Back yes! He's done it already! Gibbs White scores! Nunes, magnificent save from Marcel. That is a brilliant save.
We will make America proud again. Hold up. Wait a minute. I'm a Statman. I'm a Statman.
Brilliant from Morgan Gibbs White. Gibbs White, what a goal that is. Right wing for Hudson-Odoi. Brilliant from Gibbs White. Hudson-Odoi into the penalty area. Right hand side. Yes! Wilson scores! Yes! Inside left channel, great chance! It's Chris Wood! The first time they've That's not even a word!
Thought I'd leave it to the end of the season for the mammoth intro of intros, but I wanted to try and squeeze in as many moments from the season, but also moments from the podcast. There's a few sound bites there that we've used throughout. So hopefully I won't get too much flack for that one because, like I said, it was just a way of bringing us in. Richard Spray, how you doing, buddy?
Oh, I'm doing great. Yeah. What a great way to kind of panoramically understand what we've done as a podcast and what the club has done. What a great, beautiful, well orchestrated intro there, or I guess moment to reflect on. So thank you for that.
Thank you. How you doing, Danscape? You were at the game yesterday. How you feeling today, mate?
Yeah, I'm still a bit subdued from it. I think it was still a great day, and it was a great send off being there at the end of the season. Obviously, some of these players may or may not be here, so it was still great to be there. But yeah, definitely a little bit just just because of the way it's unfolded. Not so much what we've missed or not got or anything like that. Just obviously you hope to end the season on a high, and everybody to have been having a proper party at the end of that game. But other than that, I'm all good.
Excellent. And Raf, the random pundit, how you doing, mate?
Not as hungover as I thought I'd be, so that's a bit of a bonus. And yeah, I kind of agree where I was with Dan, and I was actually surrounded by Chelsea fans when I was watching the game. So it was quite galling because they were elated. And it just seems to be a gaping goal, and we've just fired it over the bar basically at the last minute. But I've been online. I've got to go with head over heart. Before the game even started, I said, do you know what? Going into the conference might actually be the best thing for us for a number of different reasons. I've been online. It seems to be getting some traction, which I'm really pleased about. And I hope that common sense prevails through this, and we really do see that the future is bright.
Yeah, I mean, we said the same on the post-match last night. And I think one or two of us, all of us, has probably said the same kind of thing over the last few weeks, that little steps, small steps might serve us better in the long term. We will get into more chat about yesterday and other things on another episode that's coming your way very soon. But this is the season review episode. I want to say hi to Tim Shipman in the comments. He says he's very proud of the club, and we all should be, and I echo that. Bruce is with us. Says a quick good morning, gents, and Raf, before he goes to work. He's going to catch us up later. And Jackie is pleased that we're doing the review so quickly to try and help remove some of yesterday's disappointment. She enjoyed the intro, made her smile. I'm thrilled that you like it. I get a little bit sensitive about my intros, but no, it's all good fun. Right, okay. If you wouldn't mind liking and subscribing, it really helps us out. So please hit like and subscribe. We are trying to push our numbers up as ever. So please help us along. Okay, right. So the way we're going to do this is I'm going to take the first segment and take us back to the start of the season up until a certain point, followed by Danscape, followed by Raf, and then Richard will finish us off. What we're going to do is we're going to just have a chat about the months that we're covering, a few of the highs, few of the lows, few of the key moments, have a bit of discussion about that. We're conscious of time, so we're not going to spend a million minutes on each part, but let's get ourselves underway then with the season review. Okay, so we opened the season back in August. It was a 1-1 draw at home to Bournemouth. Everyone, I'm sure, remembers it, the excitement of opening day. I was actually just getting on a bus in Florida, having just got back off a cruise. So I was trying to tune in as to what was going on and failing miserably. So I missed the opening day because I was away. But it was a game, having seen it back, of course, with Chris Wood starting as he meant to go on, scoring that goal, and a game that we possibly should have won as well, with Bournemouth coming back to nick the draw. And we know the kind of nemesis that Bournemouth had been and were to be as well later on in the season. Interestingly, Sangare and Danilo starting in the midfield. So Nuno picking those two players as his opening day partnership. So a 1-1 draw to get us underway at the start of the season. And then what would be the first of the wins, or the first of the 10 wins away at Southampton. So a 1-0 win away at Southampton. Morgan Gibbs White grabbing the goal. So we're unbeaten. We have 4 points on the board. the Carabao Cup comes along, and we get our first look at Carlos Miguel, the man with the length, in the goal. Aside from an opening sort of 30-second moment, we were all feeling quite excited. He was making some good saves. And I think it was Jota Silva that probably got us all excited. He made us all sit up a little bit. He was like a little terrier, and he scored that goal to make it 1-1. Forest going out on penalties in the Carabao Cup, possibly a missed opportunity. Newcastle would go on to lift that trophy, and maybe it's something for Forest to look at next season. There are different routes into Europe, as we well know, of course, and so maybe the Carabao Cup next season will be something we take very seriously. Wolves at home was a real pivotal, brilliant moment for us, for me and Richard, that is, because it was, in fact, the moment that we met for the first time. So, see there on screen, there's myself and Orlando and Richard and Richard's brother, Matt. So we got to go to a game together. It was a 1-1 draw at home. Chris Wood scored, and we had a great time meeting Danscape and meeting Raf and Matt Druitt and Premier Elliott and anyone else I'm forgetting at the NAV before. So it was a fantastic moment to kind of get together. And a game we should have won, really. I think realistically, a game we should have won. We had a goal ruled out for offside late on. But again, unbeaten. What was also really good was that Mark Dennison made a big fuss of the facts in the build-up to that match over the speakers that Morgan Gibbs-White had been called up into the England squad. First player in like 27 years or so, first player since Stuart Pearce to be called up into the England squad. So that took us to August. Richard, how important is it for Forest now? We're back in the Premier League to have someone in the England squad. It's a big moment, wasn't it?
Yeah, it checks boxes, right? Getting to Europe, having international players, it just gives us that much more cachet, I think, in terms of what position we find ourselves, the relevance we find ourselves in for, the forthcoming season. I mean, we'd all would, like you've even alluded to and spoke of, we all would have loved Champions League. That gives us a lot of even more cachet, right, in terms of the teams we're going to face. But as you pointed out as well, it kind of feels a little bit like we're punching above our weight too much, and probably need to progress a little bit more, methodically towards that. So yeah, I completely agree. And because it's the first time in how many years since Stuart Pearce, I think is what you said, right? Yeah. So it'd been ages. So we're getting back to kind of an era where we're used to seeing that kind of thing happen.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going into September, and it's the big one. It's the away trip to Anfield. Now, Liverpool were one of the favourites for the title. Arne Slot had come in. It's very early in the season. And at that point, he perhaps didn't quite know how Liverpool were going to turn out. But any Liverpool at home at Anfield is always going to be a difficult day. And lo and behold, the first time in 55 years, Nottingham Forest get the win. It was a Callum Hudson-Odoi goal that I'm sure everybody has watched back time and time again. And it was absolutely a wonderful moment, and really perhaps helped to set the tone for a lot of what was to come. Next up, Forest travelled to Brighton. I'll put the fixtures back up again. Where are we? There we are. So I was at the game as well. I went with Orlando, and we went 1-0 up with a Wood penalty, and then a Hinshelwood goal and a Danny Welbeck free kick, and Sells possibly getting a little bit of flack in that game as he had last season. But then Forest coming from behind to get a draw. Not very often you can say that coming from behind for Forest works out so well, but they managed to get a point on the board and remain undefeated. However, at the end of September, Forest at home to Fulham. And this was the first defeat of the season. And this was the day of the Taiwo Awoniyi Chris Wood experiment. And all Forest fans will know what I'm talking about, when it was kind of like a 4-4-2. And we were kind of left scratching our heads a little bit, and we were trusting Nino. And it had been a very promising start to the season. The win at Liverpool, as I've just said, all good things happening. So he definitely had credit in the bank, but a dubious penalty was the reason we lost the game. It went to VAR, and Was it a penalty? Should it have been? But ultimately, the penalty was given, and Forest went down 1-0 that day to Fulham. And then my final section takes us into October. A draw at Chelsea. Now, we've done okay at Chelsea since we've been back in the Premier League. And this, I think, was possibly the game that Matt Sells really kind of staked a claim to say, look, things are going to be different from me this season. He made the double save from Palmer. He made the point blank save from Nkunku. So, yeah, as I say, I thought it was the start of something for him, and definitely with hindsight. And we could have won it. Jota Silva at the end with that header. It was Robert Sanchez pulling out what I think was probably the save of the season. Because how he saved that, I will never know. So, fair play to him. He managed to save it. We come away from the bridge with a point. A couple more games in October and a couple more wins for Forest. Home to Palace, firstly. Matt Sells, again, a wonderful save from Eze. Absolutely magnificent. Wood scores to make it 1-0. Dean Henderson does his impression of a swan dive to go over the ball, it looked like to me. But we'll take the win however way it comes. Before rounding off the month with the trip to Leicester. Now, you know, if anyone listening, watching knows anything about football, these are the kind of games where you definitely can slip up. And when you go there and you grab a goal like Yates did, it looked brilliant. Vardy equalising, but Chris Wood with two very different goals that I feel has shown his versatility. The turn and swivel goal, his first, that game, possibly one of his best this season. Absolutely terrific. Matt Sells was nominated for Save of the Month that season for that save against Eze. The award did go to Robert Sanchez. And we also had as well a couple of our players, or rather one of our players, nominated and winning the Player of the Month, Chris Wood. He played 3, got 4 goals with 2 wins. And Nuno won his first Manager of the Month award with 3 games, 2 wins, and 5 goals being scored in that set of matches. So it was all starting out in a rather promising way. Forest had gone through the first 3 months, lost just the 1 game, put in some fantastic away performances, won away at Southampton, away at Liverpool, away at Leicester. And we were sitting quite nicely in the table at that point. And going into November, I remember feeling quite optimistic. Danscape.
You've given me the most juicy part of the season. I feel very lucky because we obviously went into, in November, I suppose mixed. We had that brilliant win against West Ham at home, 3-0. A fairly tight game in the first half, but then they had that red card, which just seemed to open it up, and we looked deadly on that day. They didn't stand a chance after that. The Ola Aina screamer with his Ribena after that one, I think that was, which was a definite moment of the season. And then at that Newcastle game, I remember being, we were 1-0 up at half time, and I was just thinking, this is just too easy. You know, like, so this is just not Premier League football for Forest. It's too easy. And unfortunately, that came back to bite us on the bum in the second half with that defeat to Newcastle, which felt like we just ran out a bit of steam then. And then obviously going to Arsenal for the game after, which I think was after an international break. We were missing Chris Wood from the starting lineup. I think he was a little bit tired, and I think we were still missing Gibbs White from that game. So we had Ryan Yates, and that was probably the most convincing defeat we've had this season. I know we've got the Bournemouth game, but we were sort of in that Bournemouth game for a little while, whereas this one, from minute 1, we were just never in the game. And Arsenal could, if they wanted to, have probably scored a few more goals if they kept that intensity up. So we were starting to worry at that point. And then obviously we play Ipswich at home, and it's a job done kind of performance, a penalty, just scraping through. But it keeps obviously, I think that kept enough momentum for us in terms of league position and stopping the fear that we were going to go on a bad run. So yeah, November was mixed, but then obviously we get to December, the month of Santa Nuno, with his big silver beard kicking in, and I think this is where all the magic seemed to happen, and obviously the Greg Oram silver beard. This is the magic month, really. So again, I suppose, starting off with that defeat at Man City, which not entirely surprised, but disappointing that we let them get a win when they were in such a bad run of form. It was probably a closer game than that scoreline suggests. But the magic really kicked off at Man United, where we struggled in the game, but somehow we got those 3 goals, and it just felt like another one of those. Well, it was a monumental win, getting that win at Old Trafford for the first time in however many years that one was. Going to Villa, and playing Villa at home and getting that win. For me, this is probably the most important game of the season for us. I think this, being able to come from behind for that first time, just the manner of that game. But yes, nailed it. That was also accidental. And also the manner of the performance as well, because we were really good in that game. Our passes were so crisp. We were on the front foot. We were pressing them. We were actually really good. We didn't deserve to go behind, and to come back. I think that was what gave them the belief, that kind of under the radar belief that actually we can really go somewhere this season. And we took that into Brentford with a nice routine 2-0 win away at Brentford to ruin their brilliant home record. We then beat Spurs at home on Boxing Day, which, not the greatest of games, but some great saves from Matt Sells in there, and a good finish from Elanga, like an underrated finish, that one, I think, when he sort of towed it into the corner. And then going to Everton, and again, a tough-looking game to win 2-0 comfortably away at Everton, which in the past would have sounded almost impossible, but for this team was proving to be pretty straightforward. So we've got 5 wins in a row there, and then we go into January thinking, can we carry on? Can we can we keep this form up? And we go to Wolves. Morgan Gibbs-White comes back in and scores a goal against his old club within the first 10 minutes or so, wasn't it? And that just seemed to, again, you just can't believe this is Premier League football, and we're just coasting through it. And that 6 wins in a row for me is one of the big achievements of this season. It's a little bit overlooked because I went through the records, and of the 51 different clubs that have been in the Premier League, there's only 17 that have ever managed to win 6 games in a row. We're now one of those teams. So it's not an easy achievement. West Ham have never won 6 in a row, and they've been in the Premier League for 30 seasons. Southampton have never done it in their 25 seasons. Fulham have never done it. Palace haven't done it. Bournemouth haven't done it. Brentford, Brighton, Burnley. Some good teams there. It's kind of like, that is a top 6 or a big 6, whatever you want to call it, achievement. And we went and did it. And I think that needs celebrating. We continued it in the Cup, pretty routine win against Luton for some of the squad players to come in. And then I really enjoyed the game against Liverpool. Like that's up there with one of the moments of the season, just because it was a night game and it felt like we were really in a title race at that point. It was so good to just experience that kind of game where it felt like we're right up there. We can, we can not necessarily in the long run compete for the title, but that feels like a little bit of the old style of where Forest were back in the past. We're worrying them, and we did. We went ahead, and if not for a pretty soft set piece goal, we could have beaten them again in the season, and it would have sparked probably another great run of form potentially. But it did seem to just deflate us a little bit, conceding that goal. We still managed to get the job done somehow against Southampton in January. I think the defensive woes started there, maybe. We suddenly conceded those 2 goals out of a bit of nothing, and there was a lot of anxiety in the stand, even though obviously it was still fairly early in the season. And then, unfortunately, I've got to leave this segment on a low point of the 5-0 defeat to Bournemouth, which it's as strange as the next game that'll obviously come in the list. But a strange performance whereby we started okay. They got a goal and we just seemed to unravel, and one of those bad days at the office. But as we'll come on to, it didn't ruin our bounce-back ability record. So all in all, those 3 months, just a brilliant time to be a Forest fan. Everything was right at that point. The vibes were right, the karma was right. It was Christmas. Everyone was happy, and we'll always remember those few months definitely as the standout bit for this season, I think. Fantastic.
Before we move on to the second half of the season, let's just go back again and just kind of like have a look closely at some of those results and some of those moments. I mean, one of my favourite moments, Raf, was the Ola Aina goal, the third away at West Ham. I know you've been, like all of us, you're a huge fan of Ola Aina. Is on field, off field antics. We know all about those. Could you have foreseen the? I mean, obviously, I'm asking you to kind of cast your mind back, but Ola Aina rifling in for 3-0. It was feel good fun at the City Ground, wasn't it?
It was. It just. I think that's how we should really remember this season. It was just how when things were just clicking, and for so much of this season, things were clicking. Even if we're under the cosh, the defence was clicking and it was doing its job. And for what Ola brings to us, for him to have that flowing forward and the ball just to sit up and him just, as he is, everything's effortless with Ola. It just seems so relaxed and he just whacks it and lashes it and it goes in the back of the net. And, you know, it made me so happy, and it just was the vibes of what was going on and actually the trajectory of what our season was going to do. And I think it epitomised it quite well.
Yeah, it did. I was at Newcastle Forest, the home game against them. Disappointing. It was great to see Murillo score his first goal for the club. It was disappointing the way that we kind of folded a little bit in the second half. And then that was backed up by the away defeat, as you touched on, down at the Emirates. The word I've used a lot is that bounce back ability. And of course, when you've had back-to-back defeats like we did then, when we returned to a home match at the City Ground to win 1-0 against Ipswich, and then another defeat comes our way against Man City, Richard, at the time, who, you know, they were faltering. You know, they had gone through a phase where all of a sudden the wheels were kind of coming off a little bit. But you know, it's a typical Forest thing, isn't it? They kind of always buck the trend. We can never kind of like do things easily. Go to Man City, they're not playing very well. Everyone else is beating them. We go there and lose 3-0. I kind of felt a bit deflated after that. Can you remember how you were feeling?
Yeah, because it was the idea that was one of those teams that we hadn't been able to beat yet. Coming back to the Premier League, the proverbial bogey teams, right? And we felt like we were catching them at the right time. I think we were all confident going into that match, even though we hadn't really shown ourselves well against Arsenal away in the match a couple of weeks prior, and we were getting concerned about our midfield being a bit overrun, struggles with how we manage that midfield space. Yeah, and there was that Wood opportunity, I think, right before halftime or sometime in the first half.
Yeah, right before halftime.
Yeah, it would have been 1-1 if we had scored that. It would have really changed, a lot of the trajectory of that match in totality, I think. And then, yeah, it was what it was. I mean, Man City is a difficult team, as we all know. They're replete with talent, and so it wasn't a total shock to us that we couldn't quite do it on the day, and specifically at the Etihad. But it definitely felt like it was kind of not a pivotal point, but it sort of was not what we anticipated given how the season had gone to that point. So,
and then at the start of the season, when the fixtures came out, I saw that we were away at Man City and away at Man United in the space of 3 days. And I was like, oh my God, you know, we've just come off the back of 2 seasons of battling to stay up. Man United, you would have thought at the start of the season would be up there, you know, doing well. But we go to Old Trafford, as you said, Danscape. We eked out the 3-2 win, and that was the start then of that magnificent run. And just to remind everyone, 3-2 win away at Old Trafford, 2-1 win at home to Villa, 2-0 win away at Brentford, a 1-0 win at home to Spurs, a 2-0 win away at Everton, and a 3-0 win away at Wolves. And that's 1, 2, 3, 4 clean sheets in there as well. I mean, Dan, I know this was your segment and you've obviously looked at it, but I think you said, we're one of 7 teams now, is that right? So only have won 6 in a row?
17 of the 51, but well less than half the teams that have come into the Premier League have done it. Well,
less than half. So, you know, it's still a remarkable feat. Again, we got the cup run underway with that Luton match. And then just before we move on to the second half, we'll take a break. I kind of felt that you touched on something quite interesting there. The defence showed their fragilities in that Southampton match. So we've gone 3-0 up. And Southampton, bottom of the table or thereabouts at that time, can't score goals, can't get wins, managed to pull us back to 3-2. We saw elements of the old Forest creeping in. But I kind of want to go back a few games because I felt that we really, really rode our luck at Wolves. I know the scoreline says 3-0, but there was Strand Larsen should have scored twice, I think. Murillo off the line. You know, they could have been 3-1 up at half time, I think, something like that. So there were moments that were starting to creep in a little bit, possibly in that game. And so would you say, Dan, that it was perhaps only a matter of time before, we faced a 5-0 defeat. I mean, I don't think anyone saw it coming, but I'm asking you possibly with the power of hindsight, and it had to be Bournemouth, right? Didn't it?
Yeah, it had to be them. Still the bogey team to sort out next year, but it gives us something to look forward to next year. No, I wouldn't say I did see it coming. I think the Southampton goals were those kind of, the first Southampton goal was just someone stuck their foot out and it happened to go in the top corner, wasn't it? And then they started piling on the pressure of set pieces. I think we did see the fragility of set pieces because of that Liverpool goal, and one of the Southampton ones, which didn't come, didn't kind of come out in the end to be too bad of a problem. But it just felt like that Liverpool goal was the one that burst the bubble a little bit because we'd been so solid in that game and it was such a soft goal. And I remember it was reported at the time that there was a lot of disappointment behind the scenes that we had given up that lead in that game, because it was like, we want to set our standards as high as that. We want to genuinely be, competing for the title. So I think there was that bit of disappointment that came out of that game, and maybe that just knocked the confidence because of the back of that Southampton one. And there was, like I say, it was a very anxious game, even though there was nothing really riding on that game. It wasn't like it was towards the end of the season at that point, but it was definitely a lot of anxiety in the stand that we had conceded those couple of goals. And maybe that just brought a few doubts in, because like I said before, in December, it was all about the whole vibes. Everything was just so good and so together. So maybe that just created that little bit of doubt, which sometimes in this kind of game, this sport, is all it takes.
It's worth mentioning as well. I mean, in January, put the fixtures back on again. We've crossed over into the window, and it's interesting. We don't have any new signings to talk about. We didn't sign anyone. I mean, Joel Ndala came in as a youth player, but again, not really worth mentioning.
Yeah.
And we signed Tyler. You're right. We signed Tyler Dibbling, but we didn't see him. So we hope for good things for him to come our way. But I kind of guess, really, I'm bringing this up because we know how it will ended. So maybe we'll talk about the January window that's passed a little bit later on as well as we get into it. Okay, you are watching the Talking Reds, or listening to the Talking Reds season review. We'll be back in just a short moment. I'll let you have a look at some cheese as usual. Here we go.
The Cheese Trader, based on Grape Lane in York, is a cheese lover's paradise. Home to some wonderful specialty cheeses, relishes and chutneys, and also with a fantastic street food menu. Try their loaded fries or posh cheese on toast. It'll be the best you've ever had. Owned by Forest fan Stu Freestone, the Cheese Trader proudly sponsors Talking Reds. Quote Talking Reds every time to get 10% off your order. The Cheese Trader and Talking Reds, the perfect cheesy mix.
I think the one thing that we probably should have done was probably had a whole set of tables for where we were at different points in the season. But I think by this point, we were top 4, top 3. We've catapulted ourselves with those 6 wins in a row into the top 4. Danscape had been starting to put together the European Dream Tracker, where we were all just thinking, my God, if we can get into any Europe, it would be absolutely amazing. And I think the Dream Tracker started out as a possible conference kind of qualification, didn't it? And then it's almost like, okay, well, let's add in Europa. No one ever really thought we should get Champions League. I never thought we would ever get close to being in the Champions League mix. So those 6 wins in a row certainly catapulted us forwards, and we were on the up and doing rather well. And that takes us, Raf, into your segment and February.
Cool. So I don't have the flash graphics of the other two because I was exceedingly late to the party and very late with my homework.
Oh, no, we have got you there.
We
have got you there. I just put your one up because
the one it does illustrate just for a second something I wanted to talk about, and then we can go to the posh looking ones that are there. So at this juncture, by the way, we'd been in the top 4 since game week 16. Okay, so we're quite past game week 16, but as Dan alluded to, he finishes up on that 5-0 whooping that we got by Bournemouth. Okay, and that was the first time that pundits went, the wheels are starting to come off Forest, right? And all of us actually in the fan base were looking at it ourselves going, yikes, where did that come from? Now, again, the word bounce back ability could not be used more strongly than what then happened. And this is the first game in this segment, which was well, when I say the standout result, there are other results that I think were more important, maybe more important in terms of credibility. But to steady the ship, this 7-0 at home against Brighton, I'm not going to underestimate the impact that had for the rest of our season, to completely purge the 5-0 from our memory, from the pundits, from everyone else as well. And suddenly it was amazing. It was a bit of a hospital pass by Brighton, like actually strategically, of playing 21-year-old, I think he is, Hinchelwood, by himself in midfield, which was basically a gift to us in that game. But we completely ran riot over Brighton. You know, Wood chipped in with a hat-trick. Alanga got a hat-trick of assists in that game as well. We even saw Jota kind of showing his creds as being a 9 with the 7th goal that popped up. And I was super happy in this game because Nico Williams got a goal as well, which really warmed my heart. And he really deserved that goal as well for the way that the season was going for him. And he's kicked on to do it all season, which was really good. But what I would also do is point to this game is this was the lighting of a small spark where Sangare got an assist. Okay. And this was the beginnings of where I'd always kind of gone, look, I genuinely think there's a player there, and I think he's a really harsh luck. But this was starting to become the evidence that the old Sangare of just past Christmas time when Nuno first came in, was he back? Was he getting fully fit? And there was the first evidence there. So we had the 7-0. We were back on basically cloud 9, which was fine. But in standard Forest fashion, we then went to the FA Cup and were brought right back to down to earth with a pretty tepid performance, albeit with effectively a lot of substitutions. But this was effectively Miguel in and then Miguel out. And this was the one time that we actually saw Carlos Miguel. I don't think, and I still maintain, the goal in the 5th minute when we conceded was his fault. I genuinely don't think so. He parried it away from the goal out. There just happened to be a player there. So I don't really actually see it. But his inability to really handle the ball for someone of his height as well, when he shouldn't be that challenged and other things, really led to quite a nervy game, which really wasn't actually that great. So we managed to wrestle it back to 2-1. But again, these defensive frailties that we were then seeing started raising their head again, back to 2-2. And again, they were down to 10 men. If you remember, Exeter got a man sent off in it was like the 87th minute or something like that. And we still couldn't kick on and get that 3rd goal. But this is when suddenly we found out that Forest are legends at penalties. Like, just the penalty taking was like proper international World Cup standard. Our pens were going top bins with confidence absolutely everywhere. And suddenly, Matt Sells, you hero, suddenly had a bit of Brice Samba about him and this was when he started saving penalties as well, which was absolutely brilliant. So Matt Sells saves 1, they hit the bar with 1, and Nico Williams, again, fresh off his goal from Brighton, steps up and scores the winner. And then we get through, scrape through against an Exeter side, albeit a rubbish pitch, but again, a bit of a warning sign. Then we move on to Fulham. I was actually at this game and kind of wish I didn't go because this really felt like a bit of the Forest of old. You know, at half-time, go in 1-1, and just the second half, and it just the game got away from us. And all of these thought processes, again, back to the 5-0, and like Dan alluded to, the defensive stability of Forest, which had got us to this point really in the league, really we were starting to doubt, are the wheels coming off of this? And really nothing could emphasize that this really was the case than we got to Newcastle, right? And this game was both alarming, but also encouraging in equal measure. And the adage of a game of 2 halves could not be truer in the case of this game, if you remember it. Because if you remember back to seasons ago, we had this fragility. We'd lose a goal, and then suddenly there's panic stations at the back, and then we concede another goal like within 2 minutes. This was the old bad Forest back. Newcastle scored 4 in 9 minutes. I mean, I think everyone remembers watching this game and just going, what is going on? What is going on? And it was just that feeling of old Forest back, and just hearts were sinking, and it was just like, just rubbish. What is going on? But, and I credit Nuno throughout this season for halftime team talks. We usually come out of the blocks really strong at halftime. And the second half performance was so encouraging of how we just smashed Newcastle, got them panicking. And actually, at St James's Park, that is probably the best that a team has taken it to Newcastle over a half of football that I've seen being played at St James's Park. And we absolutely decimated them, scored 3. Yates pops up with a 90th minute goal, and we all just start feeling it's destiny to come back from 4-0 down. Actually, I think we scored the first goal, actually.
We scored the first goal, yeah.
Yeah, we scored the first goal. And usually when we score the first goal, we think it's all good. But yeah, and then we concede those 4. So we get 2 back, and we think, is it possible? We ran out of time, but from having weirdly conceded 4 in 9 minutes, it wasn't all doom and gloom, because we'd suddenly seen this Forest where we go, well, we have got resilience. We have got a backbone. We have got fight back in a game where all the wheels have come off. So it was a bit of a weird game. Then we get into a really interesting segment. So we then get to Arsenal. Now, granted, this, if you remember, Arsenal basically didn't have a striker, although like Moreno was being used as an emergency striker. And it turns out he's actually quite good at doing it when you look at it now for what he's managed to do for the rest of this season, although not being a 9. But this ended up being a proper grind down match. It was a 0-0. It was back to Forest doing what they're good at and taking care of defence. And Wood could have nicked it at the end, but didn't. But I came out that game thinking, do you know what? Not only have we effectively now pretty much ended Arsenal's title chances, I think it was pretty much having done that and nicked 2 points off of them. It was okay, we can defend again. Then it was FA Cup time again. So we went and we had Ipswich to us. And to be honest, it was just a bit of it's just, again, another flat game. And we needed Yates to pop up again and score to get us back to 1-1. And then it was penalty time again. But suddenly, again, absolutely worldly penalties, which was brilliant. Nailed all of ours. And again, Hero saves one, which is brilliant. And we go through. But we're kind of looking at that and just going, not ideal. So this is a bit of, you can see, this period's a bit of a seesaw. Brilliant result, average result, brilliant result, average result. And then it carried on. Then we have Man City come to us. And we think back to that 3-0 where they were in an absolutely terrible run of form and we just rolled over. So there was a lot of, can we right that wrong? And Man City by this point had picked up and they'd started getting their act together at this juncture. And a certain Callum Hudson-Odoi, the man for seriously important goals. Not only, if you think back to Greg's segment of that Liverpool game, where that was the first goal that Liverpool had conceded all season. And if you ignore the fact after they won their title and just decided to lose to everyone, to actually then beat them as well, which was brilliant. Callum pops up and that kind of, I don't even know how it went in the near post on the right-hand side, but squeezed that in. Pretty late doors as well. And the roof got blown off the bloody stadium, basically. It was absolutely amazing. And that, if we're thinking back to iconic moments of this season, that's in the top 5, if not the top 3. For some people, top 1. But we'll come on to talking about our best moments of the season a little bit later on. But that was there. And then we suddenly, the belief's back and all the pundits are behind us again. And they're like, Forest are the real deal. This is absolutely amazing. Then we go to Ipswich and we're like, quids in, boys. We're going to Ipswich. We can absolutely smash them. This is brilliant. And then it all goes really, really well. We're 3-0 up. Everything's brilliant. We're amazing, Forest. And then, if you remember, we just took our foot off the gas for some reason and gave away a really sloppy goal. And then it depends who you were. I remember watching this game and our chat was very interesting. It was the confident people which just went, no, this is New Forest. This is absolutely fine. We'll sort it out. And then there were the others that had PTSD from Old Forest world going, oh, man, we're going to give this away from 3-0 up. Are we? Grabbed a fourth. Again, no, just took our foot off the gas and then gave away another soft goal. It was very annoying because that should have been a clean sheet, which we didn't keep at all. And again, was symptomatic, but was it? And we weren't sure if we were really, really paying attention. If we paid attention, would we have kept a clean sheet? So then we go... And then this is the last one for me. And then we go to Brighton and then show again that defensive solidity in that Brighton game. So it's can we defend? Can we not defend? Can we defend? So we do actually then defend very, very, very well. Then we come to penalties again. And ninja penalties again. Where has this come from? It's absolutely brilliant. And Sells doesn't save one. He saves 2 penalties, which are absolutely brilliant. And then, for some, again, moments of the season, Captain Fantastic Ryan Yates steps up and smashes in the winning goal, right? The winning pen reels off, runs down the length of the field, Mourinho-esque, kind of like with knee slides. And it was just really feel good. And at that stage, there was that feeling in the cup that, you know, Greg, certainly you were into Destiny chat about stuff at that juncture. And it just felt like it was our time. And that, so just to have a look, if you got my slides as well, I just want to show the situation we had with the league of where we were and because there was a feeling of where does everything kind of fall off. And if you go back one again, just to the first slide, what I want to highlight up is, for me, this was, even if you take the 7-0 out of that, we were quite free scoring in this period, except for like the games when we were playing the top teams. We were scoring goals, which again hadn't been the easiest thing for us to do all season. It was about defensive solidity. But for me, this is where we really started turning. And it seemed like the balance of the team had gone more to attack. We scored 18 goals in this period, conceded 6. And for me, it started turning like we were scoring goals and not being so defensively solid, unless we were playing a top 4 team and decided to basically park the bus and just hit them totally on the counter, as we would do. So that was kind of the balance. Now, if we actually have a look at who was contributing in this period as well. So if we look at the table, like I said, we'd actually been top 4 since game week 13. And I picked up a game week 24 at this period. So we were in 3rd. And if you have a look at it, over the teams below us, we had a 3-point cushion over 4th, 5th, and then 4-point cushion over 6th and 7th, right? We finish up with a 5-point cushion over 4th, 6 over 5th, 7 over 6th. So in this period, we'd actually been pretty good, and we'd eked out a little bit more of a cushion that was there. And we'd taken points off of those around us, or stopped, took points off Man City, stopped Arsenal from taking points off of us as well, right? And there were some key results in there for us to build out with teams around us while not giving up too many points. But it's really interesting as well. Yeah, those clean sheets against Brighton, against Arsenal, against Man City. The belief was back that if we really concentrate, our defence was back and we were scoring goals as well. Look at the list here. And I think it's really, really key. Like Jota was popping up and scoring goals. Callum had bagged 2. Alanga was getting back into the goals. But also in that period, 2 goals, 3 assists from Alanga. Wood had scored 4. But Milenkovic was popping up with goals. He got 2 of his 5 in this period as well, which was really, really helping. And the good thing of what I wanted to highlight here was we were for the first time, we were sharing around the load and the responsibility for scoring goals and making assists, which we weren't one-dimensional. Everyone was chipping in during this period to make it work.
Brilliant. Okay. A really important phase in the season. Let's move straight on to the last couple of months. And Richard Spray, take us to the end, buddy.
All right. Yeah. So April started out good because we got the double over Manchester United, as you guys remember very well. And that also came from a goal of the season candidate with that incredible run from Anthony Elanga to score with his non-favored left foot into the bottom right corner. Absolutely stellar, incredible goal on his part. And that just kind of echoed what Rash. Yeah, exactly. Oh, I can't forget. It gave us the best soundbite of them all. Yeah. Yeah. So, anyway, gosh, that completely derailed me. That's so good. So we obviously were on cloud nine at that point. We were starting in April where we actually ended up with it was our sixth unbeaten match at that point consecutively. And we didn't obviously have 6 consecutive wins, but 6 consecutive matches unbeaten. And so we were all feeling pretty good about ourselves. We were 4 points clear of Newcastle at that stage. We were in third. We were 5 points clear of Chelsea. We were 6 points clear of Man City. All is well in the world. Thinking, okay, Champions League, here we come, right, Greg? This is the time when we're all kind of getting that those juices flowing. We're feeling pretty good about Champions League. Okay, so then we kind of moved into our match versus Everton versus Aston Villa. The weird thing about Aston Villa was it just felt like we could not find a way to score in that match. The first half was not good at all. Second half, to Raf's point, Nuno had put in another beautiful talk to the team, and we had scored, but we just could not find our way through to get a draw or to close that game out with a win. And so it just sort of became this moment of seeing some fragility in terms of the offensive side. Raf talked about the shift in the last segment from the defensive to the offensive sort of approach to the game, and we sort of were finding ourselves in this weird pattern of not being able to put together a full 90. Putting together a complete match. So you shift over to Everton, and this is where things really started to go south, unfortunately. I hate having the fact that I had the closeout of the season, and while there's many good things to be grateful for, as all these guys have said, it sort of was the beginning of sort of a downward shift to a degree, especially at home. Manchester United ended up being the last home match that we would win for that period of time for the rest of the season, unfortunately. But what ended up happening was we put one of the worst performances of the season in at home in front of our home fan base against Everton, which to their credit had been playing better under Moyes. They had very much done a good job in terms of how they managed, in particular, the final third from a defensive standpoint. And while it seemed like we could have gotten that point to end the match, we didn't. We gave up a goal. One of our stalwarts of the season, stalwart defenders in that back line, Murillo, who's been absolutely fantastic this season and taken steps up in terms of his progression. He made a critical error, and they scored in injury time, which unfortunately sunk us in that situation. And as Raf kind of talked about, the sort of ebb and flow of the punditry outside of people that we obviously know in our social media space, people like Carragher, all of these guys started to kind of wonder, is Forest actually going to do it? It looks like things are starting to go south. The bounce-back ability, though, came back in full effect the following match against Spurs, because we won an away match. Brilliant way to kind of transition from a terrible performance against Everton to a better performance against Spurs. We had that, playing above our XG scenario again, like we know we've done through the entire season. We scored 2 goals, beat them 2-1, another away match, and we got another double over a team that we had struggled with historically. And that was the first away win that we had against Tottenham in any of their stadiums in 30 years. So that was another, salient moment for us in terms of the history of our club. And so we had all this positive energy beginning to build again, swirling around, seeing things kind of move back in the right direction. And then we shift over to playing the semifinal. We're all excited about playing at Wembley again for the first time since we got promoted. And unfortunately, it didn't come to pass. As much as Greg and I and all of us felt like, damn it, we're going to get this. We're going to get to the final. We're going to win the FA Cup. We're going to do it all. We're going to win the FA Cup. We're going to get to Champions League. All of that is sort of permeating the conversation. And then unfortunately it didn't happen. We lost to Man City, so it wasn't a great way to close out, April, but we felt positive. Hey, we're going to come back home. We're going to be against Brentford. We've already beaten them this season. We can beat them again. And that did not happen. Unfortunately, you shift over to May, and the start of May was probably the start of something that we all didn't want to see, which was we shifted out of the top 3 for the first time, I think, in 12 weeks. And so we ended up losing to Brentford, as we all are aware. Nikola Milenkovic, that absolute mountain of a man, the Serbinator, had probably his worst performance. And to his credit, there weren't many of those at all, but he had the worst performance. He just wasn't quite with it at certain intervals throughout the match. Gave up a really easy goal that he should have been able to clear. And then he gave it up to Wissa, who, took it down and scored. A brilliant finish by Wissa, of course. But that dropped us out of Champions League spot for the first time in 3 months. After a hard-fought match against Palace, where it was a very sort of Palace Forest-esque, cagey 1-1 draw, we shifted over to Leicester. All of us at that stage, I think, myself included, Dan included, many of us probably falsely said that this was inked in as 3 points. We all understand kind of how that match unfolded. We seemed to dominate every aspect of it. We were up, I believe, 2-0 at one point, and then they scored, or actually, no, they scored first. Then we scored again on that incredible goal from Chris Wood. I think that was off the pass from Morgan Gibbs-White, that beautiful cross that we know he's capable of doing. And everything felt like it was shifting in the right direction again. We were going to get these 3 points. We're going to put ourselves in position to get back into Champions League contention, get that to that 64-point mark with a couple of matches left in the season. We were running away with it, and it didn't happen. Buonanotte came on, derailed everything, showed that energy and that spark that they needed, that Leicester needed. They scored late in the match, ended up 2-2. Really sullied, I think, the moment. Really sullied the fact that we thought we were heading towards that Champions League space again, and even worse, to top it all off, it was marred in controversy because poor Taiwo. That's the match where he went clanging into the post. All that stuff that ensued that we've talked about in terms of bringing him back on when he clearly should have been taken off, the whole debacle around the substitution. Then you have the post-match controversy regarding how the exchange between Nuno and Marinakis, which he then had to qualify at least twice, in fact, right? The second time after we had realized terrible situation where Taiwo had suffered a ruptured intestine and had to have emergency surgery. All that had just happened, but in that match against West Ham, we were looking to get our 10th away win, looking to double the number of away wins in this season compared to the previous 2 seasons combined, trying to find some positivity, taking an unfortunate situation, what happened with Big T, and turning it around to galvanize the squad, which is exactly what happened. We go into that match, we end up winning 2-1, brilliant finish or performance, thinking we're okay, this is great. It's out of our hands at this stage. We already knew that after the Leicester match. Now, the good thing about I forgot to mention about the Leicester situation is even though it ended up with 1 point, it guaranteed us a European position of some sort, right? But at that stage, it had been taken out of our hands now. We know what we had to do in order to allow ourselves to be put in a position to be able to get into Champions League or even certainly into Europa. So then you take all that after that West Ham performance and you now shift over to Chelsea, a home match. This is the final home match of the season, final match of the season in totality. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to put ourselves in a position to win it. And we're going to definitely take this home, and we're going to get Europa at minimum. We're going to get a chance to potentially position ourselves and put ourselves in a Champions League with some help, right? And what do we know happened? We got the help we wanted, but we didn't get the result that we needed in the match that we played. It's a sad way to end the season, as we all talked about yesterday. It's unfortunate that it created somewhat of a sour note to what has been an absolutely spectacular season in collectively. But, all that to say, what, guys, it doesn't matter at this stage. We're in Europe. We've done what we needed to do. The promise that Marinakis made, he's fulfilled that promise. We are where we needed to be, and we're progressing towards being one of the best teams in the Premier League, which is exciting to see. So, yeah, just an unfortunate situation to kind of end in the last 2 months the way that we did. But that's all right, because we're right there, and we're going to continue to progress as a club.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Okay. So I think what I want to talk about next, and we're going to kind of extend over the hour for this episode, another sort of 15, 20 minutes perhaps. So it's an extra long one because it is the end of the season review. The guys have taken us all through their segments quite closely, and everyone will have moments in the season that they'll look back on and they'll say, oh God, if only that could have happened, or if only that could have happened. The season unfolded the way it unfolded. And you just touched on something then, Richard, that is quite striking. It's the way it ended. And I kind of guess I want to pose the question. Let's kind of imagine that the ending was the beginning and our beginning was our ending. And we came out of nowhere to get 7th. Rather than we slipped slightly and we got 7th and we qualified. If we'd finished like with the 6 in a row games to come out of nowhere to claim 7th place and get qualification, how different would you be feeling, guys? Dan, I come to you. I mean, are you feeling deflated that we're in the Conference League because we slipped up and didn't quite get over the line for the other two? And who wouldn't, I guess, feel that way? Or, can you now transport yourself into what I'm saying and reverse it? Imagine that the start was shit. We slipped up here. We didn't get results then. All of a sudden, we've hit form. And all of a sudden, like a train out of nowhere, where have Forest come from? They've not been doing that well this season. And we've landed on the last day in 7th place. How would you be feeling if that was the case? You're on mute as well, by the way. Still on mute.
So what you're asking me is, do I want to be a Villa fan? Is basically it. The exact opposite way that we did it. They were sort of average all season, weren't they? And then blasted through in the end, apart from the very last day. You know what's disappointing for me is that it sort of doesn't matter about what I expected to me, because I was never super bothered about Champions League as if it was going to be this massive transformational thing for us. It would have been great, but it's never the same as like promotion from the Championship. You know what I mean? Because it could just be a one season thing and you do it and then you don't get it again and all that. So yes, it would have been brilliant, but it was never the absolute be all and end all for me. But I think what kind of upsets me about the season is that I know it would have meant everything to the team and the players and the coaches, and it feels like they deserved it. And so when you saw them at the end on the pitch, you can just tell they're disappointed. So that sort of makes me disappointed more than anything. Like it doesn't bother me next season what competition we're in, because I'll still be there completely cheering it along, supporting it as if it's any other game. But you could tell to those guys, they were disappointed. They were gutted. Some of those players, like we say, might move on from Forest, and this would have been a brilliant way to get it over the line. And obviously, when you look at the table and you see that, one more point would have got us into that next competition up, and 2 more points would have put us into Champions League. Objectively, they're going to be sat there thinking through in their head, wow, if only this didn't happen, if the Murillo mistake against Everton didn't happen and the mistakes against Leicester and all that. So that they'll be doing that, which, makes me sad that they're probably not celebrating this season in the way that they should, and perhaps we're not as well. But objectively, obviously I'm in Sheffield. There'll be a Sheffield United fan sat in a house down the road from me. Absolutely trade places for us tomorrow, given what's happened this weekend. They'd have taken losing to Chelsea versus losing the way they did in the playoffs and still be in the Championship. So it's still a massively great season. And yeah, I can't say that I'm too bothered about what it means for us going into next season. It's more just about the disappointment of now, and in a few weeks' time that'll be gone for me.
Yeah, I mean, for me, a couple of things that I wanted to say. It felt for so long like nothing was going to go wrong for us. It felt like it was just written in the stars, and I had that belief that we were going to get both FA Cup and Champions League because everything was just going so well. And even though we had setbacks in the season, couple of back-to-back defeats, but then we did that bounce-back thing. But then all of a sudden, it was a turning point, and it was possibly Murillo slipping at home to Everton, where nothing was going right for us. And in fact, we needed Man City to win the FA Cup to give us Europa, which any other year they would have done, but even that didn't happen. And we needed there to not be an absolute train, roller coaster, express train kind of delivery from Aston Villa in their last set of fixtures that came out of nowhere. I mean, it was almost like everyone else was conspiring against us. but still we had it in our own hands. And still, when it came down to the nitty-gritty on the last game of the season, as Richard said in his ending, we had the favours from elsewhere, but we still couldn't take care of our own business. I would have loved Champions League football because it would have been an amazing achievement. I do think it would have been too much too soon with a clear head. I've said that a few times. Yes, I would have got on board with it. Yes, I'd have loved it. Yes, I'd have been cheering. Yes, I'd have been swinging from the chandelier. Don't get me wrong. But with a clear, balanced head, it would probably be too much too soon for us. And I worry as well, and Raf, you'll know more about this, because Villa are feeling it as well. You get into the Champions League, you invest in the squad for the Champions League. The problem is when you invest in the squad for the Champions League, you're bringing in players on elite money and elite salaries, and you really need to bloody well get into the Champions League the next season as well, or it could start to really bite you financially. Now, Forest haven't got to worry about that. The step up out of what squad we've currently got into a Conference League squad isn't going to be as great as what it would have been to go into the other two competitions. So I'm feeling pretty happy that we've got European football. There's going to be another finance episode where we kind of like look at that aspect with Raf and Danscape coming in with some other bits as well. So we haven't got time for it here, but do you know what I mean, Raf? I'm just very briefly on that kind of angle, as Champions League could really have been, perhaps too much for us from a financial point of view. The finance would have been good coming into the club, but we would have had to spend it.
Yeah, it's multifaceted, but yeah, it's high risk, and we know what Marinakis is like, and he would have gone all in, let's do this. And if we didn't deliver on the pitch, you'd end up in a very precarious. For anyone that hasn't seen it, please watch the episode where I explain the finances of the club. We are not in a hunky-dory position even now, right? And everyone thinks we are because they've just seen the headline and what other journalists have said. We're not in a great position. So watch that and you'll understand that if Marinakis goes all in, if we don't get back into Europe, all the wheels will come off the club, right? It just genuinely would happen. So this has to be managed very, very, very carefully. Very quickly, if you look at Villa and you look at Newcastle, they are constantly battling PSR every single window. That's how we got Anderson, for what we got him for, because they had to sell. And we got him a steal. So this has to be done very, very carefully. I think not having to overhaul our squad, because the conference, not to disrespect the teams that are in the conference, but we should be able to go and win that competition genuinely by not augmenting our squad that much.
We do need another set of players, though. I mean, Chelsea have played two teams this year, a Premier League team and a conference team, because they've had that depth.
But this is where I actually think this works out really well for us because of the conference and the standard of the conference. It gives us a leg up for a couple of reasons. The first is we do need some other players, but because of the UEFA thing where you have to have 4 players that have come through your own academy as well, it means the likes of Abbott and Yates will get more game time. And because of the quality of the opposition, we don't have to get in 8 starting level players to be able to balance it out like we would do in the Champions League.
Yeah.
We can probably just add like we need to and play half of on a rotation, half or 4 of the our main starting 11. And Nuno now knows what his starting 11 is. We can actually rotate out. Moriera probably gets some more starts as well. Potentially now
Taylor, hopefully.
Bindon comes in and he gets to.
I think he's coming to stay. I don't think he's going to get a loan. I think he's going to come and play.
It opens a lot more for us to be able to progress our academy. We couldn't have even done this if we got Europa League, right? We couldn't have done this, but in the conference, we have an opportunity. We also have another problem, which the Euro being in the conference will allow us to fix more slowly. And I have to credit on Forest Focus for this idea that came from, I think, Daniel's story. But we have a plan A, which is we defend and we counter-attack. Teams have figured this out and they give us the ball and then we don't know what to do, right? We can't unlock it. Sangare is becoming the answer to that, to try and unlock defenses with needle through the eye of the needle balls. But if we get to the conference, we're going to have the ball a lot. With a pre-season, please can Nuno stay? I'll come on to how we become successful. But if he stays, the whole pre-season can be on plan B of working with possession. We can then practice that in the conference against teams where we'll have lots of it, and we port that ability back into the Premier League so that we have two modes, a plan A and a plan B, and then we fare better in games where teams give us the ball.
Just quickly, I was just thinking, like, as you are now, would you accept a season like West Ham had when they won the Conference League? Would you see that as a good season if next season we win the Conference League, but we finish like whatever they were 16th or something in the league? It's like, would that be something you look forward to as a season? I mean, the idea of winning something is still really.
Well, you look at Spurs, don't you? I mean, they've had a horrific season in the Premier League, and had they not won the Europa, I mean, so I think winning something that's substantial is crucial because it can evaporate and eviscerate a shit season. Tottenham have got into the Champions League and they've got silverware. West Ham, conversely, won that and got into the Europa. But ultimately, it is about the Premier League. So I personally, if you're asking the question, I would take a 16th place finish and winning UEFA Conference because you know me, I'm all about winning things. I think winning stuff, for me, football is about winning. Football is about actually winning silverware. The reason why we play football games is to firstly win that football game and then to go and win the competition that you're in. I don't want to see Forest get stuffed every week in the Premier League, and I don't think that will happen. I really feel that like we are a sensible club, believe it or not, even though we ban pundits and we release tweets. I think we've entered an era of sensibility, of being sensible. So I don't think that happens. It's a good question, though. I'm really conscious of time, and we've got a few other bits we want to get through. So I want to move us on because I want to do our award. We're only going to have time now to do our awards because we've gone into like 1:12 already. So as much as we can sit and talk about the season like left, right, and centre, I wanted to quickly kind of move on to our awards. And I've asked everyone to come up with players who they think qualify for certain awards. In case you missed it, the Talking Reds Player of the Season is Nikola Milenkovic. We did announce that previously. We ran polls and all the guys did put forward their players. Richard was backing Morgan Gibbs-White. Raf was backing Nico Williams. And Danscape was backing Chris Wood. Then changed his mind. I'm not quite sure who you backed in the end, Dan.
No.
Matt Sells.
It was always close. It was always close between Sells and Wood anyway.
So we're going to go around the group. The next category then is your most improved player. I'll start with you, Richard, on this. Who's your most improved player? And again, we haven't got a lot of time, so just briefly the reasons why.
Yeah, I was going to say Matt Sells. I just think the differential between what he was last season when we came in, which we all were kind of like, the bar was set low with who we had playing goalkeeper previously until he came in January. He was much more capable on the ball, with the ball at his feet. And then he had really some credible saves during that season, but the consistency was lacking this year. It came.
Yeah. Raf, for you, most improved?
Ditto. A lot of people will say Nico. Nico was not that bad last season. Sells was not great last season.
No, but you can still be most improved coming from a good place to an extremely good place. You can.
Nico's kicked on really well, but the difference between old Sells and new Sells, that's why Sells gets it.
And Danscape?
It is definitely Sells. The other two I would give a shout for, though, is I think Aina stepped up again this season, much more consistent than he was last season. And I would say Murillo is the other one. I think although Murillo was brilliant last season, I saw a much better defender this season, a much better decision making for most of the season. Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I'm Matt Sells. Nico is another player that gets mentioned, but he's come from a good place to an even better place. But the level of improvement, Raf, you're right, is quite vast. I still don't think Matt Sells was as bad as what other people described him as last season. I know there's the face. You can lose the face now. You go on the data, I go on the eye test. He wasn't as bad. He wasn't that bad. Everyone's saying he was the worst keeper in the world. God damn it. But he has been the most improved player as far as I'm concerned. Right. Raf, I'll come to you first on the signing of the season.
Well, it's one of two, isn't it? Because and Milenkovic pips Anderson for me just because of the transformation, and we won because of we got to where we got to because of our defense and the change in actually, weirdly, there are three. The hidden one, and Pips is the new set piece coach that we signed. Potentially could be signing of the season, because the transformation of, I think we were top equal by the end of the season with 17 set piece goals in attack. And we
19,
totally fixed, except for the back stick, ones against us. It got a bit dicey at the end of the season. But the transformation in the numbers on both sides of it have just been phenomenal. And I think that's Milenkovic with his vocal organisation. But the other two get a good honourable mention.
Danscape, your signing of the season, anything different?
No, look, it is Milenkovic for this season. I think in the long run, Elliot Anderson is the better signing for the team, because I think he's going to go on to be brilliant and, bring in money or bring us trophies, whatever. But, I fought against Milenkovic as player of the season, but he's definitely signing of the season. I can get on board with that. Player of the season, I think, is too much about what happened last season and what, all that. But yeah, signing of the season, Milenkovic.
And Richard, what do you think?
I chose Anderson, and I think the shift from, Milenkovic already came in as a very experienced, great defender, and I'm not dismissing that because he was brilliant. But the differential and the growth of Anderson through the process, as Dan has long said, and he's 100% correct, he's the most complete midfielder we have, and he's one of the best two on the ball that we have in the squad. And for a guy to be that way, was he 22 years old? No, 21 years old at this stage. He's going to be incredible next season. I believe he's going to have even more of a presence and will challenge for that player of the season next year.
For me, it's got to be Milenkovic. He's not just the signing of this season, he's the signing of the last 25, 30 seasons, in my eyes. I think his impact has been immeasurable. I think if you take Milenkovic out of the team, we don't have the season we've had. I'm convinced of it. If you don't have Niko Milenkovic in there, we don't sign someone like him to come in and fix the problems that he fixed, then I think we have a better season than last year, but I think we finish 10th at best. We said hopefully 12th, 10th at very best, maybe not even 12th. Elliot Anderson has come in and done very well. I wouldn't have him sign the season. I think he's surprised me this season. So in terms of how much he's played, I wasn't sure how he was going to feature, but I didn't know an awful lot about him. So for me, it's got to be Milenkovic. Danscape, who's your biggest disappointment of the season?
It's going to be Alex Moreno for me. I really wanted us to have a powerful first choice, left-footed, left-back. Obviously hoped when he came in on loan he was going to do that, but he faded pretty quickly. And obviously big credit to Nico Williams for stepping up and forcing him out of that position. But I think in the end, there wasn't enough competition for that place. We saw in the cup games and stuff, Moreno just in the end wasn't really up for it. So I think that's got to be the biggest disappointment. I think that's a position that could have been key for us getting a few more points if we'd had another option there at left back later into the season.
Good call. Richard Spray, biggest disappointment?
Yeah, it's going to be a weird choice only because I think he's really availed himself towards the end of the season. I think, Sangari not being able to get into the squad earlier in the season, to me was a huge disappointment. But I almost went for something a little out of box and said, what is my biggest disappointment? It's the lack of depth on our squad that put us at jeopardy at the end of the season because we had to play too lean. But I think Sangari has definitely stepped up, but I think it's disappointing that he couldn't seem to crack that squad at an earlier point. I don't know what the reasons are for that. There may be multiple reasons, but yeah.
Okay, Raf, who is your biggest disappointment of the season?
It's a who, and it's disappointing all round is Danilo, because I'm just disappointed for him of where he was at the end of last season with that horrendous injury that he had. For someone that was supposed to be a starter for us, that his whole season's just been a complete wipeout. So I'm disappointed for him. But the most disappointing player in a more negative kind of fashion, and it's harsh on him, but it's Ramon Sosa. Because, and actually in a different thing, his numbers are actually excellent. I think he's just not being played. And that must be a training thing. I don't know what it is. But the fact that we've not had backup on our wings has really cost us. Like, really, really cost us. And the fact that he's not trusted to come on for whatever reason, because the data doesn't point at it, so it must be something else. That, for me, has just been the biggest disappointment.
I had Ramon Sosa down for the same reasons. But then I looked and thought, actually, you know what? When he had his moments on the pitch, he delivered. So I didn't choose him in the end. And in fact, I chose Carlos Miguel. And the reason why I chose Carlos Miguel was because when I saw him in the Newcastle Carabao Cup game, I was really pleased with him as a number 2. And I thought that we'd see more of him. And I know that Matt Sells obviously had the season of seasons, so no one's ever going to get past him. But the reason why I chose him as the biggest disappointment was the Exeter game. I felt that he threw the towel in that game for some reason. The first goal, I'm not necessarily going to pin on him, but it just felt like it was an edgy performance, and it was an edgy performance from him. And when they scored their second, which again, I don't attribute any blame to him, it just to me felt like he lost his head, and I don't believe he was injured. That's a bit of an accusation to throw out there, or maybe he made more of the injury than was necessary, and he ended up going off, didn't he? And so I remember in that moment feeling really disappointed in him, thinking, you know what, it feels to me like he's thrown the towel in there. I could be wrong, and I probably am wrong. But I just
Gary Neville there slightly, but yeah,
I just felt like he threw the towel in a little bit. So that was a big disappointment for me. There we go. Because you know what, finding disappointing other players from this season and calling someone a disappointment is difficult. So that was one of my most disappointing moments. Richard Spray, what's your goal of the season?
Might be a little bit different than what most would say, but from a pure football strike standpoint, I thought the left-handed curler into the bottom left corner by Anthony Elanga against Ipswich was unbelievable.
Yeah,
at a time where we needed we need some progress, as Raf talked about in his segment, from other players besides Chris Wood. We couldn't keep leaning on his shot conversion rate. It was just becoming too difficult to sustain, and we saw that towards the end of the season, obviously. So, yeah, I thought that was an incredible goal from his non-favorite foot.
Okay. Raf, we're going to move on to you for goal of the season.
Yeah, it's probably a popular choice, but it's for a number of reasons. Is going to be Callum Hudson-Odoi for some of those goals, but it's going to be the Liverpool goal, not the Man City goal for me. It just pips it, and it's for a couple of reasons. One is because it was just what he does, and it just from the outside of the box into the bottom corner. But Liverpool had not conceded a goal all season up until then. They were impenetrable. And it was the goal that got in Slot's head. It shattered the Liverpool aura. It gave the squad the belief, hang on, we are this good. We can do this season. And I think it gave them the platform to kick on to have the season that we had. And just the sound bites of Slot over and over again, mentioning our game for like 10 games onwards, still mentioning us. I think just that goal was just pure magic and the gift that kept on giving.
Thank you. Danscape?
Get the soundbite ready, because it's definitely the Elanga goal against Man United.
Tackle him!
It's going to have to be that one as the definite winner, possibly goal of the season in the league, that one. Just brilliant, because those moves normally fluff at the last bit, don't they? But to finish that move as well, so good. The two I'd give a shout out as slightly underrated goals. The second goal we got against Brighton, the build-up in that move where, Murillo played into Gibbs-White, laid it off, and there was a couple of, and then that puts Jota through. That was a brilliant move. That was a great passing move that was exactly how we want to play. And the Gibbs-White one against Everton, the way he did that little back flick shimmy, I think that's a bit underrated to do that in that moment and slot it in. So I give them a mention.
Thank you very much. For me, third place goes to Ola Aina at home to West Ham. I love that goal. I love him. Love everything he stands for as a footballer, as a person. So that goal for me was incredible. Second place would be Chris Wood away at Leicester. The way that he took it across his body, turned and hit it, I thought that was just really skillful and showed his ability to score lots of different goals. Hudson-Odoi, obviously, the goal at Liverpool, the goal against Man City. But
why aren't you tackling him?
It has to be the one and only Anthony Elanga, because that goal to me has just given me such joy to see it back. And the Goldbridge sound clip, absolutely fantastic. So yeah, for me, Anthony Elanga. And I watched Match of the Day last night, and Anthony Elanga's goal wasn't even mentioned, and I thought that was scandalous, absolutely scandalous.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, not even mentioned in the top six. But there we go. Anyway, we are fast approaching the longest podcast of the year, but we're still going to plow on. And I'm coming to Raf now for your moment of the season. So your moment, this could be on the pitch, could be off the pitch. This is your moment of the season.
For football and a non-footballing one. So the footballing one.
Let me stop you. So because the next one is game of the season. So you can do a moment of the season and then also give me your game of the season. It might be the same thing.
Season? Yikes. Okay, I'll make that one up really quickly. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So moment of the season for me, I just think there's some things that transcend football, and the celebration, we can call it, after Morgan Gibbs-White scored his goal for Taiwo, and the team all coming together for Taiwo, and that show of unity and love and care for someone that, you know, you can think what you want of Taiwo, but it's really clear of what type of human being Taiwo Awoniyi is and how important he is to everyone in that squad. And for me, it's horrendous what happened to him. And that outpouring, I think, was just my favourite moment of this season.
Okay, fantastic. Danscape moment of the season. You can give us your game of the season as well. Raf, have a think about your game of the season. I'll come back to you. So what's your moment of the season, Dan, and what's your game of the season?
The game of the season first is that Villa home game. I think that was the vital one for us to turn around that game and come from behind and win it and do it in the manner that we did. Brilliant. I think that spurred us on. So I'd definitely put that down as game of the season. Moment of the season, I don't know if you've got the picture to load up at all, but it's got to be this. I think this is the moment of the last 3 or 4 years. I think this just sums up everything about our little story, the way that we've turned things around from being a low-level championship club. We've still got our captain and leader, Ryan Yates, in there, and we've just wound up the second richest club in the world, on paper anyway. And there it is, all in just a photo, like a Renaissance painting. You can see on Gibbs-White's face, you can see that Gibbs-White's realising, like, wow, what are we doing here? And, you know, at that point, everything still felt like we were still top three. We were still on course. And that for me was that, you know, there was a lot of moments in that game, but that took it as well.
Richard, moment of the season and game of the season.
Yeah, I think the culminating moment for me of just the culture and the camaraderie and the connectedness that we saw with the club came when Lina got a piggyback from his gaffer. So yeah, that's such a brilliant thing to watch, and it was nice to see Nuno, he's still a smiley, good guy, not kind man, as we know. You saw how he interacted with Warriors United. That'd probably be another one as well, when he did the sign language with those guys. But it was just great to see him just enjoy that victory and just, you know, take it all in. But I would say the game in the season, yeah, I would agree with Dan. I think it's the Villa match where we beat them at home. I mean, it was such a great way to end that match. A brilliant play by Elliot Anderson to win the ball back and then cross the ball in, and that phenomenal finish from Malanga to secure that victory and the only victory that we got from coming from behind.
Fantastic. So Raf, you wanted to give me your game of the season?
Yeah, it's going to be that Liverpool game. It was so quintessential in transforming our club, not only in terms of the players' belief, but the pundits' belief, our own belief, and it seriously just put us on the map. And for me, it was so important.
My game of the season, contenders were Villa at home for the reasons you've said, Liverpool away for the reasons you've said, both pivotal. For me, the game of the season, Man City at home, to beat an elite team for the first time like that at the City ground, giving the fans a real moment to celebrate. Hudson-Odoi coming up with the goods again. You know, I thought that was really special. So for me, that would be my game of the season. And my moment of the season, on the pitch, the win at Anfield, just not so much the game itself, but just what it meant for the club. But my overriding moment of the season, and Richard kind of stole my thunder slightly, would be Nuno and his interaction with the Warriors. I thought the Warriors have been everything this season, absolutely everything for what we stand for as a club. Having them come on the podcast is truly one of the highlights of my year. Seeing Nuno interact, the I Love Forest with Matt, and Joseph in the audience, and all the others as well, just made me feel really warm, made me feel really good, and I just loved that as my moment in the season. The Warriors are fabulous. The Helen's going to come back on again. I wanted to try and get her on before the season was out, but hopefully we're going to see more of Helen Coppins next season coming on the panel and doing some reviews for us. All right, okay, right. We're an hour and a half, guys. Don't know how that happened, but I kind of just let it go. Sod it. Season's finished now. We're going to be back again to do some more content through the downtime. We'll have some finance stuff. Dan's going to chip in with some of his stat kind of angles. We'll bring you the news as it happens when we can. We'll bring you some one-withs. We're going to go down to kind of one episode a week now for a while. Got to try and focus on some work, guys, and try and get some serious job work done if I can. But we'll be around still. Want to thank every single person that's commented, that's been part of this season with us, our first season. If you wouldn't mind hitting like and subscribe, it would be absolutely awesome. You can come and check us out on TikTok, on X, on Facebook. You can come and find us and follow us there. Just come and say hi. It's been a real joy and a real pleasure. Thank you so much to the likes of Wolfie, who's been really supportive over from Forest Fan TV. He might still be around in the comments. And Crypto's here as well. Yes, the beard is still in force. I had thought about shaving it off, so, you can tell me, keep it, let it go, keep it, let it go. Well, we'll see. Anyway, guys, look, we haven't got time to go around everyone, but Raf, Danscape, absolute legends. Richard Spray, my co-host, final word to you.
Yeah, just a great shout out to all these guys. I mean, these guys have been amazing. All the wonderful people that have been kind enough to come on. Max Scott, your interview with Matt Ford. I mean, there's just been so many cool experiences that we've had in our first year in the podcasting world. So thank you guys, and a big shout out to many people, Paul Morley, all the guys that come on and ladies that come on, and Polly and so forth. We just really appreciate you very much, and this is pointless without all of these guys really participating, contributing. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Richard. It's been a real pleasure. We'll be back again very soon. Conference League, guys. Conference League, European football. Forest are on the up. See you soon.
Come join Greg and Richard right here on Talking Reds.